Welcome to the Delmarva Almanac. Each week we connect you to the best of Delmarva. Now here is part 2 of a conversation about Delmarva's rare plants between naturalist Dave Wilson and botanist Wes Knapp.
Today we conclude with the second half of a 2-part series on rare and native plants of Delmarva. We'll talk about some specific plants and the state of biological diversity in the peninsula. In the studio, we are lucky to have Wes Knapp, the Eastern Region ecologist and botanist with the Maryland Department of Natural Resources, Wildlife and Heritage Division. He has worked for DNR for about 15 years and is currently the Eastern Region Heritage Ecologist. He has described a number of new species of plants around the U.S. Let's talk a little bit about Delmarva bays to start with. These have fascinated me since I started combing the woods on the peninsula about 27 years ago.
Sure. One of the most fascinating habitats we get here are called Delmarva bays or Carolina bays. And these are elliptic, so circular wetlands that fill with rainwater this time of year. And then through the summer, they draw down as they dry out. And as they dry out, they become herbaceous plant dominated, and there can be an abundance of rare species only found in those habitats. Now, there are rare amphibians that occupy these habitats and rare plants. They are some of the best botanical hotspots on the shore, and some of the weirdest distribution patterns of plants in eastern North America show up in these bays, like hundreds of miles disjunct one bay to another. Some species are disjunct from North Carolina, known from fewer than a handful of locations in the world, are found in these Carolina or Delmarva bays.
Tell me about Indian pipe.
I get more questions about Indian pipe than any other plant because it doesn't have chlorophyll, so it's white. So how does it get its energy? It's a saprophytic. It gets its nutrients from other animals or other plant species. It's shockingly white when you see it in the forest. So it looks like no other plant you've ever seen. I've actually had people say, well, I thought that's what made plants is they had chlorophyll. It's like, well, typically, yeah, but some of them aren't. Some of them are parasitic, and this is a parasitic or saprophytic species you find throughout the state of Maryland. So if you're out in August, you can probably see the white stems starting to emerge. They sometimes get pinkish. They have a single flower on the top of them, and then they fade into a brown late in the year.
So Wes, is pink lady slipper a rare species? I know you only see it in a few places, and I get a lot of calls and people want me to come see their pink lady slipper. Where do we find it, and why is it so hard to find it?
So pink lady slipper is not a rare species. It's found from the shore all the way to western Maryland. And I get more emails and pictures of this plant than any other plant. And I don't mind getting the pictures even though it's not rare because that means somebody's engaged and they're interested. And this species loves dry, preferably sandy soils. It likes sun, but it can deal with some shade. It comes up early in the year and it's done quickly. It's done by June. But we've seen a massive decline in all of our native orchid species and the one non-native orchid species we get in the state because of rampant deer herbivory. I was a lead author on a paper that talked about orchid decline in the Catoctin Mountains, which are in Frederick County, and it showed a almost perfect inverse correlation between the deer explosion in the county and then the loss of the orchids. So that's why we don't see them as much as we used to. But you can still find the basal leaves, the hairy, opposite sessile on the forest floor leaves of dry sandy soils throughout the state. It is a real treat. We only get a handful of, these are in the genus Cypripedium. We only get a handful of lady slipper orchids in the state, and they're all a treat to see.
How about prickly pear? We see a lot of cacti on the shore, certainly on Assateague. Where is this coming from? Is it native, and how rare is it?
Well, we actually have a native cactus in Maryland. That's the prickly pear, Opuntia humifusa. Most people don't realize that it's a native plant here. They think of the desert southwest and they think of cactuses, but we get one. Now, we do have many that are planted as part of landscaping. None of those are invasive as far as we know. They sit still, they behave themselves. But Opuntia loves really dry, really sandy, often disturbed, sometimes ruderal habitats. I put some of this in my yard and it did just fine. I live in a dry, sandy area in Dorchester County. I wouldn't recommend that because my kids fell in it and my wife got mad and I had to pull it all up. But the moral of the story is Opuntia is all over the shore. Dry, sandy soils. Just because it's a cactus doesn't mean it's not native. And it is delicious to eat when it's in fruit. You just have to use your shirt usually, pull off the trichomes, which are these little tiny bristles that get in your skin. Delicious fruit. You can make a jam out of it. I've seen a beer made out of it.
Wes, you're writing a book. Can you tell us a little bit about the book you're about ready to complete?
So by the end of March, my co-authors, Rob Noxie of the New York Botanical Gardens, and I, we're going to be publishing the first checklist of the Maryland flora since the Browns published the woody and herbaceous plants of Maryland in 1984 and 1972, respectively. So we're really excited about that. It's been 8+ years of work to document all the plants in the state, and it's kind of eye-opening how much things have changed since the 80s. I think of it as a really necessary piece that for some reason we just haven't done, because it's a benchmark of a time and place. So what do we have? Is it rare or common? And how do we know we have it? So this checklist I'm working on is a little novel in that everything on the list is vouchered by a specimen. It's not something I collected, but something collected in the past by somebody else, and it's at a herbarium, which makes it more scientific because science is about repeatability. And I say this species is documented by a specimen at the Smithsonian. You can go to the Smithsonian and check that specimen to make sure you agree or not. Because every year we have new non-native species found. And the first question is, do we already have this? Is this new to the state? And then we have new native species found that are conservation priorities. And this will be a document for us to go back to and see what is truly new to the state's flora. And it could be the launching point for other projects like floras. If somebody wanted to revise the flora of Maryland, this would be the obvious starting point to do that.
Wes, where can you get a copy of that work?
So we're going to submit that to the Annals of the New York Botanical Gardens. And that will be peer-reviewed and published as a standalone softbound paper book that you can purchase. Now, we haven't submitted it yet, so we hope it will be accepted and peer-reviewed, but they've invited us to accept it.
Where can Marylanders go to find out more about plants and plant identification and maybe get involved in finding and mapping rare plants, or really any native plant?
There are 2 products that I've been a party of that I'm really proud of, and I work closely with the guys at the Maryland Biodiversity Project. And we also have a separate website now called the Maryland Plant Atlas, which is a collaboration between us and the Natural Heritage Program, the University of Maryland, and the Biodiversity Project to give quad-level distribution of every plant species found in Maryland. So not only does it have county and quad maps for distribution, they have photographs that you can look, and numerous photographs usually. You can usually look at a specimen that's housed at the University of Maryland to compare your plant with if you don't like the photographs that are present. We are actively accepting information through a Twitter feed, a Flickr pool, through a Flickr pool. So if you find pink lady slippers, you can take a picture, put it through the Flickr pool, and it will get updated eventually onto the atlas. Because this citizen science is a big part of the plant atlas. If you want to, I can put you in contact with the Maryland Biodiversity Project guys. They are truly an inspiration that it's 2 blue-collar dudes who wanted to do a project like that, and they did. And citizen science is important because, like I say, boots on the ground are thin. Like, I know all the good botanists in the state. There really aren't that many. But a citizen with a camera in his pocket, his or her pocket, they're a powerful tool now because they can come across wildflower they've never seen, take a picture, they can email it, put it on the Biodiversity Project website. You can get a name on it. And sometimes those are very rare plants. They're really, like I was on vacation down in North Carolina, but I'm on a Facebook group called Plants to Identify, and this woman put this plant on it, a purple fringeless orchid from central Maryland. And that's a rare species for us. I reached out to her, and she gave me the location data, and went out, and we had a new population for the database. We mapped it, how many plants there were, we can protect it now. And that's what we need to do a better job of, is that citizen science.
We've been talking to Wes Knapp, the Eastern Region ecologist and botanist with the Maryland Department of Natural Resources Wildlife and Heritage Program. For more information on plants on Delmarva and related links, visit us at delmarvaalmanac.com/nature.
Well, that's all for this edition of the Delmarva Almanac. Be sure to follow us on Facebook or Twitter, and next week join us to learn more about our local culture and get connected to our natural wonders. If you'd like to become an underwriter for this program, visit delmarvaalmanac.com/support. We'd like to thank our community partners, the Friends of Delmarva Public Radio, the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore, and underwriters eatdrinkbuyart.com for their help in bringing this program to you, our audience. Our theme music was provided by Brightside Studio. This show has been a Moonshell production. Thanks for listening. Until we meet again, may the rhythms and tides of Delmarva bring you good fortune.